I don't think it hit me until way later in life. I think it's after my parents moved to the States. And even then, I didn't really notice the difference again because I was pretty young. But I think one of the most formative moments was when I was in middle school and we were just talking about, our roots and all of that. And then this kid said, "Oh, you're an immigrant." And I didn't fully understand what that meant in that moment until talking about it with my parents. And they were like, "Yes." And it's not a stigma, but the way it was like delivered felt like I was an other for the first time ever. So in that moment, I realized that, there are parts of me that are different. And I hated that I felt different in that moment. But now looking back, I think it's an amazing perspective to bring, and how I navigate life is like shaped by those experiences.
Interesting, yeah. So then you move to the United States. It's not until you move to the United States
Yeah.
then you realize that it's
Yeah.
not even in the communities.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's younger, right?
Yeah, like honestly, as soon as I could walk, probably, or even when I couldn't walk, my mom would be carrying me on one hand and then holding a sign on the other hand. So I like to joke that the reason I study international relations is because I was born into it. Like my parents met because of geopolitical tensions, I would say. And then my like formative childhood memories were playing with other kids while our parents were protesting. And like there's a photo of like me when I was a toddler holding a sign that says something along the lines of human rights is not a crime.
Oh,
And
wow.
so it's like it's very ingrained into like my identity, my upbringing, and how I navigate the world.
Oh, okay, okay. That's interesting. And then you are born into international relations. It's not you are chosen to study international relations. So, IR, right? It's lots of people have the similar situation, right? It's like
Mhm.
diaspora moving around, but they
Mhm.
did not necessarily choose to major in IR. And
Mhm.
then why IR? IR is like you could do finance, you could do marketing, like you could do more, you know, has a greater return on investment major, yeah.
I guess because it's fundamentally who I am. And especially as a Burmese American, I do feel that there is a civic responsibility to use the privileges as an American living abroad to speak up for those that can't, especially in Burma right now, where it's experiencing enormous amounts of human rights violations. And unfortunately, the international community simply does not respond to it. And so, of course, I'm only one person, but I do feel that I have this unique position where I have these rights and I have the opportunity to keep learning about, these global dynamics.
Mm.
And at the end of the day, I believe that my responsibility is to advocate for people back home.
Yes, yes, yes. So it's that too. So that's why you choose international relations. Yeah, but let's backtrack a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
When you are like kids, you move to U.S. at the age of like
Six.
six.
Yeah.
Oh, at six, and then over there, right? Then at that point, this is your first time you are knowingly moving to a different communities, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How was that like? How was that like for you? Like to you know, because you're very young, then probably it's pretty hard for a lot of us, to move around when we're kids. Yeah,
Yeah.
you need to say goodbye to your friends in the schools, and then yeah, how was that like? And can you share a little bit, what happened? How was that like, and then what happened after you moved to the U.S.?
I didn't really understand the reason for the move for the longest time or the implications of that. All I knew in that moment was just this excitement of boarding a plane. But once I finally realized, okay, I'm in a completely new environment with new people, new cultures, it was honestly jarring at first. I remember talking to my mom about what going to school would look like, and she was like, it's going to be completely different, and you might have some communication difficulties, but just try your best. But honestly, like there were so many connections between my new life there and my past life. For example, at lunch, I remember getting so excited when I found out like it's very similar to food served in like um, in India, where it was like a bean and tortilla dip, which was similar to like a roti and bean curry. And so there were so many little similarities, or like even how you play as kids, that it didn't feel like a disconnect. It just felt like a continuation. Of course, it's very different settings, a different language, a different culture and norms. But there were so many like little threads that still made it easier to realize that, okay, I'm away from what I know, but I can easily call this home as well.
Yes, yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, so it didn't take you that much to adapt to a new communities. Yeah.
No, no.
Okay, so and because you already speak English, right, in India, yeah,
Yeah,
in New Delhi,
yeah.
so the language wasn't
The
a
language
barrier.
was definitely
Okay.
easier, I would say, because that I had that foundation back in India.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure my experience would probably be a lot difficult and more different if I couldn't speak or communicate. But I think having that um, opportunity to keep practicing English was really like it smoothened everything
Yes,
else.
yeah, of course. And then, right, then you were like over there, I studying in the United States since six, right, since
Hmm.
six, and then, mm, but where were you in the United States?
My parents believe that it made the most sense for me to have a better
Okay.
opportunity,
Mm.
especially living in India. They felt that me as a Burmese refugee would, like, my opportunities in life would be severely limited. So they took the risk to apply for asylum in the United States, and through the facilitation of a Lutheran church, we were able to move and pursue a better career.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool. Yeah, so that's very common for lots of like,
Mhm.
I think that's one of the universally shared, aspiration, right? A better education for your kids, and then yeah,
Yeah.
to give them a much better environment. And so when you are in the United States, but in the United States, lots of immigrants, right, like has even though they felt themselves is like a part of the community, but especially right in middle school, those kids they probably don't know that much, and then they were like, as you mentioned earlier, they mentioned like, oh, you are immigrants, you doesn't look like us or something. So yeah, so you know, so, have you had a difficulties with that, or like what was like you were talking about, you know, some kids pointed out you doesn't look like them, you are immigrants, and then how do you reconcile with that, or how do you embrace that?
I would say again, because it hit me a little too late in life,
Yeah.
where I went to a very diverse elementary school where everyone has an immigrant story.
Yeah.
And so there was that like common thread, or I didn't even know the word I didn't know the word being immigrant until in middle school and what that meant, because everybody that I was surrounded by from like first grade to fifth grade, everybody had a like whether it was their grandparents or parents or themselves that moved, so they understand what that means.
Mhm.
And so I never really felt out of place because there's that shared, empathy, shared experience of, coming from a different place. But then in middle school, I was surrounded by a lot of kids that weren't in that environment, did not grow up in a very diverse area, or did not have interactions with people that moved from different places.
Mhm.
So as it was new to them, it was also new to me, where the concept of being foreign was felt for the first time,
Yeah.
despite my whole life being a foreigner
Uh huh.
to a certain extent. I think it was in middle school where I realized, okay, I don't have all these like similarities as I thought I did. And what does that mean?
Mm.
And then I think those moments just kept growing as I got older and
Yeah.
started interacting with more people outside of, my neighborhood and all of that, realizing they haven't had the opportunity to interact with people from different origins.
Mhm.
But what does that mean for me? And so it's still something I grapple with.
Yeah. Yeah. So then then after, right, after you grow up, right, you decided to major in IR to do all of this to is this a way of understanding yourself and
Hmm.
also to make sense of like the geopolitics? situation. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's also a way for me to connect with my roots
Mm.
as well. I believe that while studying IR opens you up to a lot of discourse about the world, it's also really recentering to remind myself of why I'm here, why I'm learning this, and it's at the end of the day, it goes back to wanting to work in the sphere of human rights, realizing this immense privilege I have of being able to study at this wonderful institution, interact with people from very different backgrounds, and constantly learning from my peers as much as I learn from, the professors here. And all of it comes back to how do I want to contribute to the world that has given me so much, but also what do I want to do given my role as a Burmese American.
Okay, so obviously, right? It's like a very, I really admire. It's a very passionate issue, and it's very personal for you as well. Yeah. So I was like, that's something a very great cause to champion for. And if you wanna, so what do you think is the, as a college student, as a college student, um, it's easy to contribute to the cause. And if you in your journey of trying to contribute to the issue you care about, do you run into challenges?
I think that so one of my first words I've ever spoken when I was a baby was just mimicking what my parents would say a lot at protests, which is do ye, that means our cause. And that's just been something that's just guided my entire life where it's believing in something greater than yourself and greater than what you have right now. And I believe having a purpose that's outside of yourself and contributing to that service is what makes life really meaningful. Of course, there's other lucrative opportunities, but would it give me the happiness? Would it give me the reason to wake up every day knowing that, I want to be able to speak up for people back at home? And so I believe that, with IR, there's just so many opportunities for me to interact and constantly work to contribute to making this world hopefully a better place.
Yes, yes. So yeah, idealism is something. I'm an idealist, so I can deeply resonate with it. But idealism is great. And what's the alternative? If idealism is,
Yeah, yeah. If
yeah.
there's nothing to look forward to or hope for, I think it's a very bleak and sad life.
Yes, yes. And when you move around, so it's talking about more like reflection part of your journey, right? So when you move around, and there's so many people I start to move around when we talk about it. We felt like you know it's kind of like when we move around, we're fitting into different new communities. But at the same time, right? Do you feel like kind of like drifted away from your communities back home?
At times, yes, but I think there's always ways to reconnect
Mm-hmm.
because I am a firm believer that if you want to do something, you can do it.
Yeah.
It's about putting in the time and energy. Of
Mm.
course, we don't always have that time and energy, but it is doable. And so, especially moving to another country, Italy now, and navigating, what being a graduate student is like, navigating a whole new community while still staying true to your community back at home. It is hard, but I do believe it's not challenging at times. I think it's just an expansion of who I am as an individual. Now I have more people in my life, which I'm very
Mm-hmm.
grateful for. And there's so many ways to bridge this life and the life back at home.
Yeah.
And so I don't think it's caught in the middle, but just trying to find ways to bridge those two worlds together.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Then find a way to bridge them together, and then that all become a part of yourself. So
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
it's.
So I never felt like I was caught between living back at Maryland and
Mm-hmm.
living in Italy.
Yeah.
Small things like my friends here would get along great with my friends back at home, or constantly talking about wanting to introduce my friends to Burmese culture. So
Mm.
when we all moved back to DC,
Yeah.
being like, oh, you guys should come over for dinner. So I think rather than being caught in the middle, it's currently trying to find a way to make these two separate worlds
Mm.
into one,
Yeah.
world.
Yeah. That makes sense. And when you do all of that, right, whether it's to moving between different worlds or it's a champions cause, right? So what motivates you? Who's your hero, personal hero, with through all of this?
I think my parents,
Mm-hmm.
and I know it's such a cliche
No,
answer,
no, no.
but
Of course.
it is my parents because I mean, moving so many times and being so selfless and always putting others ahead of yourself is never easy. My dad fled Burma at 19 because he was part of the 88 generation protesting against the military regime and protesting for democracy in Burma. And then my mom, who was the oldest of all her siblings and was the breadwinner and had to raise her whole family. And so they've never chose a path for themselves. And then they moved to the United States knowing it's a completely different world,
Mm-hmm.
languages and all, knowing that it's going to be very hard to adjust there, but for the betterment of my life. And so they've always lived a life, with the intention of doing good for others, whether it's within their family or communities.
Uh-huh.
And I hope to embody that.
Yes, yes. So I've heard that all of the people.
And I hope to embody that.
Yes, yes. So I've heard that all of the people's hero, personal hero, is their parents. So I mean,
Yeah.
like that's not cliche, but it's just like universally shared experiences.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And for the for the and then right now you're at grad school. And
Mhm.
then what do you think when you are doing all of this interacting with people from all around the world? And is that most one of the few memorable experiences when you're interacting with what are some memorable experiences when you're interacting with people from different part of the country, a different part of the world, and it probably you interact with people from different countries
Mhm.
throughout your life, and when you are young, probably it doesn't make that much sense, and you didn't really reconcile the importance. And right now, right, probably the perspective is a little bit different, right?
Yeah, I think it's also more different given that you're not only interacting one on one, but you're actively discussing the state of the world when everybody's from very different places, hence different perspectives. And so I think the most memorable experiences at SAIS so far have been being able to hear the completely different realities my friends and peers live in and how that shapes their beliefs. And I think it's amazing learning about perspectives or like ideas that I've never considered before because I didn't have that experience in the first place. So being here, it's not only being exposed to, different people from different cultures, but also just completely different schools of thoughts and why they believe in the way they do.
Uh-huh.
And it doesn't matter whether I agree with it or not, it's just being able to know that idea and being able to talk about it because where else would I like hear this from?
Yeah, it might be a very. It has a lot to do with memory, but do you recall a conversation or an interaction with friends that you're like, oh wow, I didn't realize that before.
Yeah, when I think it was the second week of classes
Uh-huh.
at SICE seminar, and we're in our seminar class, and someone brought up the fact about migration, and I'm a
Mm-hmm.
refugee, so I thought I knew everything about it. But they were talking about the implications it has on local communities, and it wasn't whether I agreed with it or not, but I was never in the opposite side where like I'm the ones impacted by it. So
Mm-hmm.
I think regardless of how I like perceive this issue, it was just really interesting to hear firsthand from like the other side.
Uh-huh.
And I think that's really wonderful. It's not again about whether I agree with it or not and to not take it personally. That's something that I think is really great. Is just hearing why they believe in the way they do, but also what life events led them to believe in the way they do. And hopefully, my perspectives also contribute to other people's educational experiences as well.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. And it's more like have a deeper conversation, more informed of each
Hmm.
other's perspectives, like mutually beneficial. dialogue. And like right now, right, if you have a magic wand, right, you can change things. Like what would be the ideal world look like for you? What would be yeah. So yeah, what would be I mean, after graduate, not the world in general. Of course, no more war is
Yeah.
peaceful. Yeah, but for you, like after science, what do you envision yourself to be doing? Yeah.
Like with this question, is it like more about
More
my
about you. More about you. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I would hope that I would be able to one day contribute to, or not just contribute, but work directly in the field of humanitarian development.
Mm.
Right now, as we all know, the development sphere is dying
Yeah.
or it's not being funded as it should be. And I hope that by the time I graduate SAIS, that it's being revitalized, or if not, I have some way of still contributing to this because it is the reason why I chose to study IR. It's not to, make money, or it's not to hold a public office. It's truly to work with people for people.
Mm.
And at the end of the day, I believe that after SAIS, working in the field is truly what I think is my next step.
Yeah. Oh wow. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. Then I was like, yeah. So what? I was like, people doing IR, people doing all of this, choosing a course beyond yourself, it require certain characteristic. And would you say it's like, would you say your courage, curiosity, and then social responsibility? Where do you think you gain those like characteristic from? Is that your parents, or is that like
Yeah, I think it's my parents. Again, just growing up in a family where you see your parents constantly doing what they can to improve the community or the world, like my dad, who, you know,
mm-hmm.
picked up books to teach students in his community how to read and write. And then my mom, who would also provide meals with her limited funds to local teachers. And so it's always been giving back. And so I think it's just natural that I also have that sense of responsibility. And although now we're in the United States, those practices have never once been reduced with
Yeah.
my parents.
Mm.
We go to the Burmese temple every month, and my mom and dad donate or um, work alongside other community members to raise funds. They have mutual funds to
Mm.
give back to people in Burma. And so it's always been being brought up in a community and a network of people that are using the limited resources they have for others.
Wow, oh, that's beautiful. It's like, yeah, so it's very influential to you. Yeah. Then the last question is about education itself. Like it's like about
Hmm.
study abroad itself. So right now you have been moving around, learning from different communities. But right now, probably the other high school students or college students, they have the opportunity to study abroad, but they hesitate, right? Why would they study
Hmm.
abroad? Like or should they study abroad? Like what kind of advice would you give to them? Like should they study abroad? Or why should they study abroad?
Oh, I could give this spiel for hours,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah, yeah.
they should absolutely study abroad for a multitude of reasons. You don't have to be interested in IR to study abroad. I think it's just a great way to get outside your bubble and realize a completely different worlds that are in front of you. And I think, we get too comfortable with the people, the culture that we're in, because that's all we've known. And taking a step outside of it is scary. But it's also really exciting to know there's so many pathways in front of you that you didn't know existed. I also think that the reason I'm here today in this school is because I went to Denmark where I studied abroad. Because before that, I had an idea of what I wanted to do with my life, which was I studied government and politics. What's next? Law school, because it just seemed like the natural route. But when I went abroad, I realized how much I love learning about different cultures, how much I love sharing about my own culture, but also the classes, the people, the different pathways. So I think study abroad not only introduces you to different cultures, but also all the opportunities that weren't available before. And I know funding is always a scary concept as well, but coming from a Pell Grant recipient, there's always opportunities. There's scholarships, and then there's also the Gilman Scholarship that not only provides the financial resources to make study abroad possible, but also the mentorship and career opportunities.
Yeah, so yeah, of course, yeah, and I mean, and this, yeah,